Hello, wonderful mom bosses and web designers and creatives. Welcome to part 4. This series is how to create a website for beginners. And today we're going to talk about building a footer with the Divi theme builder. Hey moms, welcome to another episode of the Life Unboxed blog show, where we talk about all things momtrepreneur, from raising your kids to running a business, and the most important, keeping your sanity. I am Jodie the mom from lifeunboxed.blog. So we are back today with part 4 of the series, How to Create a Website for Beginners. And as I mentioned in the introduction, today we are going to build the footer. Let's jump right into it. So I'm going to show you what we're going to build today. So this is our homepage for our photography website. In the last video, we built the header and the menu. So now we are going to scroll down and build this footer. So this whole contact form and the copyright bar are both part of the footer. Let's jump right into it. So we are going to come down here to our Divi theme builder. So the same place where we built the header in the last video. And we are going to click Add Global Footer. So as you can see, this says Default Website Template. So this is saying that this is the template across the entire website. So you can actually create a body in here as well that would populate across the entire website. But I don't like doing that because I like all of my pages to look unique. Unless, of course, a great place to put that is if you're doing a blog. And so you may want to have a blog template, which we will get into much, much later, so that you have just the same uniform look for every post. But for our pages, we will be designing them each individually. So let's click Build the Global Footer. We're going to start building from scratch. So we want to do a single column text row. And let's look for the text module. So there is our single column row. So we want to add the background color. But first, so before we get into this, I'm closing this out. We want to make this row. We want to take care of the row settings, and we want to make them sizing, and we want to make them 100% and the max width 100%. There. So now we're going to span the entire width of the screen. And since what I'm designing right now is that bottom blue bar, we also want to adjust the padding settings in this row. So you would find the padding under spacing. So just so you know, with Divi, even though we don't see any numbers in here, they have a default setting for padding. So what we want to do is we want to change the top and the bottom to 0. So you saw how that just shifted. So even though we didn't see any numbers in there, there's always a default amount in all of these places, margin, padding, all of that. And if you ever wanted to go back to the default, you just need to hit this, and that'll take you back to the default settings. Even if we had other numbers in here, that'll reset to the default settings. All right, but let's go to 0, 0. So let's now add our background color. So let's come to row settings. Now we can add the background color in row settings. We can add it in the column settings. So wherever you want to add it, just add it there. Okay, so we're actually going to add, so like I said, we could add the background here, and that would span. We could add it here. So remember how I said there's more than one way to do something in Divi. I want to actually add the background color to our section settings. Adding it to this section, if we added another row, the background color would be applied to that. But we're only going to do one row. But I still want the background color in the section. There we go. And it's a little thick for me here. So I also want to change the spacing on this, and we want to make the top and bottom padding 0, 0. All right. So that might be a little too skinny now, and that's okay. So we're going to go into the row settings, and where we changed the spacing here. Remember, we're going to go back and we're going to set it default. Perfect. That is exactly what I'm looking for. So you saw how, so we decided to change the spacing in the row section settings, sorry, but it was too skinny with having the section and the row both set to 0. So I went back to the default settings for the row. So let's save that. Now we're going to get into our module. Oh, and this is always fun. Okay. So sometimes when the rows, modules, and sections are so close together, you cannot get to the tools that you need. It's one of those quirky little flaws that Divi has, but there's other ways to get to it. So remember, there's always more than one way to do it in Divi. So we're going to come over here to the wireframe view. So let me show you this again. So these 3 dots expand another menu for you, and it will give you your different mobile views. So tablet and phone. Also gives you the wireframe view. So we're going to do this. So here's our wireframe. So we want into this module right here. So we're going to click the settings. And now we're going to go back to the desktop view. So that is just one way to get to the settings you need if all of your layers are overlapping. Okay, so let's add our text for right now. So we're going to delete the dummy text. And since it's a copyright, I'm going to add the copyright symbol. So we hit that symbol sign, and it'll be 2021. Okay, and I want to make this a web link. So what I'm going to do first, and you aren't seeing here, is I'm actually going to copy the exact link from the web browser. Not because I don't trust my typing, but we just want to make sure we get it exactly correct. So the easiest thing to do is copy and paste. So we're going to highlight the text that we want to link. We're going to hit this link here. And throughout your entire website, if you want to make text a link, this is always the button you're going to hit. We're going to paste in our URL. And I want it to open in a new window. So when the user clicks on this link, it will open in a new window. So click OK. It disappeared. What happened? So what has happened is that our active link color is this blue. So in the very first video we made, we set the active link color to this color. So it has disappeared because this is, it's a body link, not an active link, because this text is a link. So we are just going to change it real quick. Okay, so we're going to make this white so that it will showing up. But I don't want it to, but I'm going to make the rest of the text down there are cream color. So I want to make this a little more distinct. So we're going to come into the text portion, And we're going to look for the hex code. So there's a hex code here and a hex code here. And all of these F's always mean white. That's the hex code for white. So that's a good way to know that you found the correct one. So right now I'm going to take the hex code for our tan color. And I am just going to paste it into both places. Make sure you do not delete the semicolons or any other code in there. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. Okay, so as you can see, that turned it tan, which is what we wanted. So now let's go and design the rest of the text. Okay, so we want the text color to be cream. And because it's the footer, I want to change it to 14 pixels. And frankly, it is a little too close to the edge there. So we want to change the spacing on that one. So I'm going to actually go ahead and put this in the center of the module. Or the center of the row there. I think that looks good. We're not putting anything else in this section, so it can live right there in the center. So now we are going to save. And we're still working on it, but let's just go ahead and save it because you don't want to lose your work. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what we're going to build. We are going to build this section with social media icons and this text here and all this fun stuff. So that's what we're going to build next. We aren't going to put in all of everything for the contact form. We'll do that in a later video. So right now we're just designing and we're not going to worry about where this contact form needs to go to or anything like that. So stay tuned. We're going to do that one in another video. All right, so now let's add a new section. So that is the blue plus sign. Because remember, we added the background to the color to the section here. And so we don't want that to carry into the next section. So regular, we're going to do a 1-column row and we're going to add the contact module. So contact form. And look at that. It's almost completely done for us. Now you may be thinking, well, wasn't the contact form above the blue line? It was, and we will move them later. I just like to build it this way. It's my preference. There's no reason. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I just like to build it like this and then set it where I want it to be set. Okay, so let's close this because we're not going to do this just yet. Let's go to our section and we're going to set the background color. And it's going to be our cream color. Go back to the module. So I want to turn off the CAPTCHA. You can use Google reCAPTCHA with these forms, and I would recommend using that. And you would do that by turning this on and then signing up for reCAPTCHA. But we'll get into all of that when we do the contact form video as well. Because while you're building the website, you don't need your contact form to be active. You just need it to be designed since it's going to sit on the footer. So let's turn this off because we're not going to use that. And let's start designing this. Okay, the first one I want to design is the button. Now remember, there's more than one way to do something in Divi. So we're gonna, yes, turn this on, use custom styles for button because we want to design it ourselves. So I want the text size to come down to 16. I want the button border. I want that to be 0. Yeah, we want that to be 0. And I want the button border radius to be also 0. So if we were going to make let me just show you. If we were going to make a circular button, then you would change the radius just like that, and it would make it oval. But we don't want any of that there. And yes, I also want to put that back to 0. So you can, if you remember from our other contact form, we had a line sitting under submit instead of the full on button. So there's 2 ways you can do that. The first way that requires the least amount of design is to just change the text. Let's go find the button text. Okay, so button font style, change it to underline, and it would underline it. But for me, the underline is too close to the text. I want there to be just a little bit more space. So we are going to do something totally different. Let's go down to box shadow. So box shadow, you can really have some fun with this because like they give you these kind of traditional setups, but you can do so much more with it. And that's what we're going to do for this button. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to select our box shadow, and we want this solid-ish one. So now let's come down and we are going to start changing things. So we're going to set the horizontal position to 0. Okay, so as you can see, you saw that the box shadow has now moved to just being a bold line underneath the text. But it's a little thick. So we're going to change the vertical position to 2. There, we thinned it out to the line that we want. So, and now we are going to change the color, the shadow color, to our tan. Okay, but there's a few more things that we want to do for the button. Let's go up. So we set our box shadow. Actually, let's do this right now. All right, if you come over to this arrow right here, we're going to click that. This is going to allow you to change things on hover. So we're going to select hover, and I want the line to change when I hover over it. So you see, so when someone comes to hit submit, the line is going to change. Let's go back to our tan. The line doesn't show up very well when you're in the visual builder, but the line will change to our blue. Okay, so now let's change the button text. Here we go. We're going to make this our charcoal color. All right, so for our button text, we're going to leave it at 16. Let's go through, and we changed our button text color. So our background. Now, when we hover, there's a background color. And I want to let's just take a look and see if we want to keep that or not. So we want to come up to the hover, select hover, and it says there's no background color. Okay, so that background color is gone, and I think we'll just leave it like that. So our button border width, button border color, we've already taken care of all of that. Okay, we are going to not show the button icon. So we will no longer have the arrow coming up when we hover on it. All right, so let's add some padding. So I want to add 5 pixels, top and bottom, and we're just going to click the link here. And then left and right, we're going to do 0 pixels. Okay, so now you can see the line is the same length as the text. Okay, so we've done all of this. So we've already worked on each of the sections. There's just one thing that I want to add. So I want to make the letter spacing 2 pixels. So you can see it just made it a little bit wider. All right, so this is looking pretty good. Now that we've designed our button, let's go ahead and work on the fields. Because if you remember, we didn't have this great color in there. So we want to make the color fields or the background color transparent or no color. So we deleted the background color. Okay, so now that we've deleted the background color, we want to add a line to the bottom. So we're going to scroll down to border. I'm going to click on that. And we want to do inputs border styles. So that's going to, the input means the fields. So we're going to just do a bottom line. And we're going to make it our tan. And we're going to give it a few pixels here. Maybe we'll stick with 1 pixel. So we have our lines. Now we need to change the text color. So fields text color. I'm going to make it charcoal, the same as our submit. And let's scroll down and check the text size, 14 pixels. We'll leave it just like that. Okay, so we have our contact form done, except for doing all the messaging, which, like I said, we're going to do in another video. But now we need to add our box shadow to this form. So let's come down to box shadow. So now that we have our fields done, we still need to do kind of the admin messaging of the contact form, but that will be done in another video. Let's go ahead and add our box shadow to the row. So if we were to add a box shadow here, it would just do it to the fields. But we want this whole thing to have a box shadow. So let's go to our row settings. Let's go to box shadow. And we're going to add this one right here. So let's change the shadow color. We're going to make it our tan, but we are going to give it some transparency because we just want the box shadow to be subtle. We don't need it to be in your face. That should be good. Okay, so now we need to fix our margins because our left and right margins are a little too close. So let's come to spacing and we're going to give our left and right 6 VW. Now again, the reason we don't do pixels is because pixels is a fixed unit of measurement, whereas 6 VW means view, like your viewport width. It's going to adjust to whatever screen size your reader is using. Okay, so let's save this, and now we are going to add our social follows. So we want to add, so let's go ahead and add a new row. And we'll do a single row, a single column. And let's put in the social media follow. Okay, so as you can see, where'd they go? All right, so as you can see, they've already added Facebook and Twitter, but to be frank with you, they don't really match our website. Like, they're not the right color. You don't like the background. So let's change some of that. So click on here. Nope, that's not where the backgrounds are. Icon. Nope. Or you can turn on the follow button and it'll add that. But we want this to be clean, so I don't want to add those. So let's go into our Facebook. Let's go into the background. Delete it. Yay. Okay, or you can change the background color, but I just want it gone. Okay, so we've changed the background color. I'm not linking anything right now, but this is where you would put in your Facebook URL. Just since this is for beginners, I'm going to teach you like a beginner. Go ahead and you want to make sure you delete the hash sign that's here when you put in your URL. Otherwise, your URL won't work. So make sure that gets gone and you paste in your URL. All right, so let's go to design. And the icon, I want to make it our charcoal. And I also want to change the icon size. So we're going to use custom icon size, and I want to make it 12 pixels. And let's go back and we'll do the same thing for Twitter. So kill the background. If we were to link, this is where we would link. But let's design. And we also want to make this 12 pixels. So let's add a new network. So you hit new and select it. So you can do Pinterest. Again, delete the background, design, and change this to 12 pixels too. So let's save that, and we're going to save that. All right, but as you can see, this is not centered. We want it centered. They look a little lonely here, so let's go back into our social media follow settings. Let's hit design, alignment, and we're going to center them. And if we wanted to give it a little bit more space between the form and the icons, we would come into spacing and just push it down a little bit. We don't want it too far, so let's just do 10 pixels. So we're going to go ahead and switch them out, or put the blue bar underneath the contact form. So let's go into Wireframe, and as you can see, this is our section with our contact form and our social media follows. This is the first one we did, so we're just going to drag it. Okay, and it's not going to let me drop it underneath. Let's see if it'll let me drop it above. There we go. And let's go back to our desktop view. There we go. So we have switched them around. But there's a little too much space between here and here. So I want to adjust that margin. So we're going to go into our section settings, and let's go down to spacing. So let's see, -8%. Okay, so that's a little too much. So let's just play around with it and see. That's looking a little bit better. See, I like that. So there's not as much space between all of them. So let's go ahead and hit save. So it is looking good. All right, so now let's go ahead and add our text above the form. Okay, so this is going to be a new section. And again, we're gonna pop it back up to the top. And it's going to be a text. All right, so let's close this and let's go back to our wireframe, because I want this above our contact form. There we go. Okay, so we're going to change this, and this is going to be our RSVP text. So we want to change that to an H1 heading. And let's design it. So we would go into heading text and make sure we're on the H1, because that's the one that we are designing. And we want to change the color to our tan. Make it transparent. Let's try it like that. We can always come back and change the transparency as we get into it. And we want to make the heading text size 7.5 VW. Okay, so now you can see, like, this is bigger. I want to actually make this a little bit more transparent. And let's go ahead and align it center. Okay, so we are going to save this and move on to our next text module. Okay, and this is going to say, tell me about your big day. Okay, and we are going to call this an H2 heading. And let's go design it. Okay, so make sure you click on H2. And we want to center it. Color is correct. And we want to make it 50 pixels. Now we may decide to change this to VW at a later date, because again, pixels is set, but for now, we'll just leave it at 50 pixels. And we want this to overlap our RSVP. Don't worry, we'll get all this overlapping as well. So you would go to, let's come down here to spacing, and we want the top margin to be minus 10%. There we go. Okay, so the next thing, so that's where we want it. So we want to add our decorative divider. So we're going to add an image module. And let's go find the image. So these I got the vector graphics, so these 4 from Pixabay, and I recolored them in Photoshop. All right, so let's insert that, and it's huge. So that's not what we want. So let's go into sizing, and we want to change it to 31%. So let's align center. There we go. I want to make it a little bit transparent, so let's come into filters, and we're going to come down to opacity, and we'll put it at about 41%. So now I want to adjust the margin because I want to adjust it up. So we're going to do minus 1%. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the layout. So let's adjust the section settings. Let's give it 0 padding on the bottom. Okay, so that's a start. We brought it up quite a bit, but we want to bring it, the rest of this up to right just underneath in the middle of the RSVP. So we're going to come down to this section that has our contact form, and we're going to bring that up. So let's bring it up to about minus 8%. There, that is our form. So I actually just want to give it a little bit more space, but I think it looks cute. There. We'll leave it at 7%. And we have just designed the contact form for our entire website. Before I forget, because I did forget this in the header video, hit save. Okay, once it's done turning, click it and come over here and hit save changes. There. So I really hope that you have found this video helpful, and be sure to watch the other videos if you haven't already, and stay tuned because we are going to be building an entire website with Divi. And again, the goal of this is to build it in small increments so that you are enabled to follow it step by step during nap time. If you know somebody who could really benefit, please share this video, like the video, and comment. For more great momtrepreneur content, please check out lifeunboxed.blog.